Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. I wanted to bring in my two brothers. We're going to talk about this money situation, the NCAA, tampering, all those big things that we've been talking about for months, and how money is completely controlling the game. And I think we'll get to hear a couple of interesting insights from them. So let's get right on with it. All right, folks, got my two brothers in here. We're going to talk a little bit about all this money that is truly controlling college football these days. All right, yeah, so RG3 thinks you got to spend $20 million. He's probably right. I've shown you the chart many times that the teams that were in the top, and actually the viewers will be able to see this chart, the top three teams out of the top four money-wise were all in the Final Four. So it's just you got to spend the money. And now we've got a situation where Jeremiah Smith, the phenom wide receiver at Ohio State, is being offered $4.5 million to come to another school. We don't know what school that is. It's been reported by On3. And I'll actually present that and let y'all look at it. Y'all can see that. See, Ryan Day responds to the report. And he's considering it tampering with Jeremiah Smith.
I bet he is.
Oh, yeah, and he's calling for enforcement and all that. So there's a lot going on.
Got to be done about this. They need to put these kids under contract, whether that's making them employees or I guess you could do an independent contractor contract on that maybe, but I assume you got to make them employees like they do in the NFL, because it's really, I mean, I don't have a problem with the kids trying to make money, but to just change year after year. The coaches, you know, everybody says, well, the coaches were making money. Yeah, but they signed a contract. They've got to be at a school with X amount of years before they can get out of it. So if they can get these kids to sign a contract where that's just going to make the sport better. You don't have people changing teams every year. It's just a fiasco right now.
It is, and eventually it's going to get. I mean, now we're looking at $4.5, $5 million. When's it going to be $6 million, $7 million, $10 million to get a good quarterback? It's probably not far away. If it keeps going like it's going, it could spiral.
Yeah, it's gone up a lot faster than I thought it was going to, and a big part of that too is now we're going to have revenue sharing in 2025. So that's an additional $21 million in NIL, about 15 of which will probably go into football. So you're looking at, you know, that doubled it immediately. And then on top of it, they have figured out that if you want to compete, you've got to spend the money, because now everybody can look at the chart and say, okay, so-and-so spent this amount of money and they made it to the Final Four in the championship. And it's like, obviously you've got to spend that amount of money if you want to compete.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's turned into corporate people, businesses paying the money to get the seats, the NIL. It's just, you know, it's unfortunately they're pricing out the middle class on this. It's just hard for people to afford to go to games now with the prices. And you're sure as heck not going to be able to make a donation every year of $20,000, $25,000 to keep your tickets. That's just a shame it's gone to this, but I understand they're all looking at the money, but I hate seeing some of these loyal fans that have been going to the games for years and they just get to the point where they can't afford to do it.
Yeah, that's true. And that's happening all over.
Yeah, I've been getting a ton of comments on my videos that it's ruining the college game itself. A lot of people feel that way, but, you know, it was inevitable. This is where it was headed, because they were losing every lawsuit, because you can't win. You can't stop people from making a living. And that's what the NCAA had been doing for decades. And once it got in front of the Supreme Court and in front of these federal attorneys and judges, they're like, this is ridiculous. You're stopping people from earning a living, and you're making a killing, and they make nothing. So it had to change. It feels like what they're going to have to do is turn them into employees, collective bargain, have a union head, and then they negotiate with the schools. And I don't know. It's the only way it's probably going to work.
Yeah, just like the NFL, that's where it's going to end up.
Hopefully that's where it ends up, and it doesn't end up like professional baseball where you got like 3 or 4 teams with all the money, and they're always the ones every single year. You know, hopefully it gets spread around a little bit and more like the NFL. That's what's keeping the NFL so popular when, like, the NBA's not doing well ratings-wise. Major League Baseball has been going downhill for years. You know, it's always the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers and a couple others. And do you want it to always be Ohio State and Oregon and, you know, Texas that have all the money?
And that chart you put up, Sports Talk, showed all the NIL money. I mean, there basically were only maybe 5 or 6 teams that were going to win the national championship. That's pretty much it. If you weren't over 10, 11, 12 million dollars in NIL, you didn't have a competitive team out there, really.
Yeah, you had to be on that list unless you were Arizona State or Boise State and you got in because they had it kind of set up to where you could get in without having to get in the way everybody else did.
True.
Yeah, but they weren't going to win it.
No,
They weren't going to win it.
No, they didn't have the players because they couldn't afford the players. Now you can almost buy a championship now.
But of course,
it just takes one good billionaire that's willing to spend the money that can do that for you. Now, a lot of that may change April 7th because, again, at that point, you have to do the revenue sharing, and NIL is supposed to be okayed or allowed by a 7-person panel that's going to say, yes, this is true NIL, or no, this is pay for play. It's not allowed. And that's the settlement. Now, whether or not that settlement will hold in court, we don't know.
And you telling me those 7 people, who are they going to appoint them, and are they going to be biased one way or the other? Who knows? That's probably going to be another mess. Yeah, you got to put it's got to be some kind of, I don't know if you call it a cap or not, like a salary cap, but there's got to be something that keeps it from getting really out of hand.
Yeah, that's what the settlement was all about. It was about coming together with a revenue sharing plan that everybody could somewhat agree with, and then having that panel. But as soon as the panel says that NIL is not approved, there's going to be a lawsuit immediately, and they're going to lose.
Is the NCAA coming up with this panel?
Well, it's a company called Deltier, and it's supposed to be an unbiased panel of, sports experts that would look at it, marketing experts, and say, yes, okay, this person's worth that name, image, and likeness for this car company or whatever it is, or this person's just simply getting a couple of $1 million to play football. It's not going to matter. I swear I think they're going to get sued and they're going to lose. That would be my guess. I think it's going to have to wind up having to have collective bargaining. They're going to have to be employees. You're going to have a union. And then you can have a salary cap. And then you'll have parity. But it's probably only going to be 60 or 70 teams that are going to be in that league, which will be your Power 4 and something along that lines. And then maybe they can allow somebody to qualify into the tournament some way, shape, or form. It's going to be real tricky. But it feels like it's going to wind up being 60 or 70 teams that can afford the salary cap.
Well, that's certainly enough to get, to ensure that you get, the best teams in the championships every year. I mean, that's ultimately what it boils down to after all that's said and done. But yeah, it's, who's in, who's out. And it goes to that again. And who decides who's in or out. And yeah, it may have to go to some kind of unionized collective bargaining like the NFL. The NFL is doing it better than anybody else in the pros. That's just a fact.
Parity's good for a league and teams.
They got to figure out how to seed this tournament better compared to what they did. Like that was definitely an issue.
Oh yeah,
really, a lot of those first
they'll
games.
Fix that in 2 years.
Good.
I don't think they can fix it in 2025 because they have a 2-year contract with this thing. They could adjust it somewhat. After that, they'll change it completely. It will go to 14 teams or 16 teams, and they'll get rid of the automatic qualifiers with the exception of maybe the Big Ten and the SEC. We'll see.
Well, really, the NFL doesn't have it completely solved either, because you'll have somebody win their division in a division that's not as good, and they'll be hosting a home game for the playoffs, and somebody like the the Minnesota Vikings at 13-4 have to go on the road and play a division winner that might have gone 500. So they don't really have it fixed either, but at least they're better at it than the NCAA is.
Well, in any given year, you can have that, but then because they have so much parity, in a couple of years, maybe that division that was bad is now one of the better ones, and the division was good. Because look at the teams now in the playoffs. I mean, for years Buffalo was terrible. For years the Eagles were terrible. Now that's turned around. The Washington Commanders, they couldn't win a ball game, and now they're in it. So that kind of parity helps in the long term. In the short term, anything can happen, but in the long term, that kind of parity has been great for the NFL.
Well, if you've got a cap, everybody has the same amount of money to spend, then you can probably get it worked out where you do have parity. So that's probably where it's going to end up eventually. It's hard to say. I mean, this is a very tricky situation.
It is.
You're dealing with different states, different conferences, different rules. It's going to be tricky, but money is playing a monster role in this. If you want to win, you got to spend the money. Otherwise, you're not going to win.
No, I think everybody can agree on that.
All right, folks, just wanted to have my brothers in here and get their opinion on this. They follow college sports as much as any two people that I know, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting to let y'all hear some of their opinions. Anyway, and if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, boom. Well, actually, boom, boom, boom. Hit this little button right over here. It won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jack.
Check, please.